just really welcome everyone into the space and to kind of center us all in a similar place. I thought that we could watch one of the videos that actually our team created. Leia Marisovich, who is on the call, is the mastermind behind this very special, beautiful video that'll give us a little bit of an introduction into the work of New Leaf Agriculture and how your organization and that social enterprise is a part of the Multicultural Refugee Coalition. So this video will explain a little bit more and then we'll go into a little bit more detail. So just give me 1 sec and we'll share this with everyone.
New Leaf Agriculture represents turning over a new leaf and really planting new roots here in your new community for all of these newcomers.
I'm Wandaka Musungira. I'm from the Congo.
My name is Krishna Bishta. I'm from Bhutan.
My name is Kavira Mandali. I'm from Congo.
Pierre, Congo.
My name is Doli Wikongo. I'm from Congo.
Our mission is to provide livelihood to refugees, to create an environment where people feel comfortable. We're trying to learn from each other, a community. They get to see the native community here, trying to really feel happy in what they are doing. Main source of income is CSA, community supported agriculture.
Multicultural Refugee Coalition, MRC for short, exists to provide livelihood opportunities for refugees through skills-based education and social entrepreneurship. We do that through 2 social enterprises. One of them is called Open Arms Studio, which is sustainable textile manufacturing. We employ 20 refugee women. And then New Leaf Agriculture is our 20-acre organic farm, and where we employ 6 refugees, connecting them back to forward farming traditions.
When I'm out, I feel good. I see the nature. I can cry, I can sing, no problem. I feel good. I mix with something which I know and the new method here.
That wisdom of organic farmers in our area who have really lived with the soil and the seasons for so long, and then also with a lot of the traditional practices that our refugee team here brings to the table. I think that it's a really rich environment for the next generation of farmers to be learning in.
So gorgeous. It's so special to hear you guys' words in that way and see just images on the farm. I love opening these sessions with a little bit of just abundance and seeing the space that you guys are. So thank you so much for being a part of that piece of it. Yeah, and to just kick things off, huge welcome to everyone in the chat. Thanks so much for joining. We have another one joining us. But yeah, I think that what's really exciting me about this session is to give folks an idea of just how special what your team is creating in Austin, Texas. So to give everyone a bit of background, New Leaf Agriculture is a 20-acre, fully fledged organic and regenerative farm operation. And as a social enterprise, your team's work aims to connect refugees to dignified, fair wage work through this farm. So I'm so excited to hear more about this, but to give folks an idea of a bit more of the ecosystem that New Leaf exists within. You also are kind of like a pair, like 2 sides of the coin, I imagine you guys, as far as with Open Arms Studio, which is your textile studio that also aims to connect refugees to work. So we have it's so incredible to hear the work that you guys are doing, and both of those partner organizations and social enterprises live under the umbrella of the Multicultural Refugee Coalition. So I'll share a few links as we go along, but I really wanted to give folks just an idea of that umbrella and kind of the orientation of the session today. We're going to hear a bit more from both you, Matt, and Doli. So I'm so excited to dive a bit more into your background, and pieces of kind of those questions will give us more color into kind of the structure and the work that you guys are doing through multiple of those programs. And then also, I think it's so special as we kind of ask a few of those questions and get a sense of all the work that's happening on the ground at New Leaf. We'll have a chance to transition into questions and answers. So thank you guys so much both for being here. Just huge gratitude to each of you for being a part of this conversation. And also thank you so much to everyone who is here in attendance for getting a sense. And we're so excited about these sessions because it's a beautiful opportunity to get to know the farmers that, Farmers Footprint is storytelling about through the Meet a Farmer series. And although Wandaka isn't able to be with us as he's off to school in Canada and on to the next adventure, and he was the main, feature within our most recent Meet a Farmer story. I think, Matt, you're off video, but I'm sure you'll be coming back. There's so much beauty in just getting a sense of other folks who are on the team at New Leaf, and Doli is Wandaka's mom. So it's so cool to have you in the house, Doli. I can't wait to hear more about your experience as a refugee coming from the Democratic Republic of Congo and now arriving here in Austin, Texas. So without further ado, I think that gives a pretty awesome overview of what is happening here. I'd invite everyone to go ahead and pin Matt's screen. So if you head over to his Zoom window and click those 3 buttons, you can pin his screen. So it'll kind of spotlight his view for you, and you'll get a really good sense of, just their work. So as we kind of transition into this, I'd love to just give a little bit of background. Matt, you were born in Austin, Texas, and you've been involved with local organic agriculture since 2012. I know that you earned your permaculture design certification in 2015 and then began working within Texas at Symbiosis Regenerative Systems, and then you were actually the manager of Greengate Farms, a nearby farm. And in that process, you started working and bridge building with the Multicultural Refugee Coalition. So you've been on the team now at New Leaf as the farm director since January of 2020. And I know you're really excited about incorporating chickens into the farm's crop rotation in the coming months to regenerate the soil. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background and just how you've been enjoying working with MRC as the farm director. What are some of the favorite aspects of your job that excite you?
Yeah, so I guess I got into farming just through wanting to connect to my food more. Started volunteering at Greengate Farms before I ever started working there. And so volunteered there starting in 2012, and then in 2015, MRC and Greengate had a person who would come out to volunteer at Greengate and was also involved with MRC. And she suggested getting a program called FarmLink started. And so basically that was before we had New Leaf, before we had this farm out here. And so basically at that time when I was volunteering, I would go pick up our refugee team and then take them out to Greengate Farms to volunteer once a week for about 4 hours. And then they would take a bunch of food home. And that was really, I think that, that opportunity was really what got me interested in working with MRC long-term. I feel like, we would always, I would go pick everyone up and we would get out to the farm and everyone was kind of sleepy and, in the van in the morning. And then as soon as we got to the farm, it felt like everyone really just kind of brightened up and, would be laughing and, just having a really good time out in the field together. And it really touched me that, we had these people from different countries and everyone was sort of far from their original home, but everyone really seemed at home in the field. And it was just really always a pleasure to be a part of that in the volunteer capacity. And then when I started managing at Greengate was around the same time that New Leaf got this farm. And then Wandaka, who's Doli's son, who you saw in the video, he decided he wanted to focus more on school because he had been doing like this, which was, even one of those full time is kind of enough. So yeah, he needed to just focus on school, and that was when
Matt, can you guys hear us? I think Matt might be frozen a little bit. That's okay. I'm sure they will hop back in. Oh, I think we got him back.
Did any of that come through?
Yeah, most of it did. Most of it did. I think it kind of just cut out where you were saying that Wandaka was transitioning back to focus on school. Actually, Matt, I'd love if you could break down a little bit, maybe Wandaka's involvement. That would be really fabulous since you touched on him, just to give folks who didn't have a chance to read the story a sense of, yeah, his journey, and maybe Doli could chime in as well a little bit of just how, I know Wandaka was so pivotal in creating, transitioning from the community gardens once he arrived into, the new 20-acre field that now you guys are really working at and managing. So that would be just maybe broad strokes, a little bit of a sense of how that came to be.
Yeah, so that was kind of also a connection through Greengate. Where we're currently farming is we rent 20 acres of a larger 300-acre ranch, about 20 minutes outside Austin. And there's another farmer who lives up at the top of the property, kind of on the other side of the property from us, named Sharon. And she had some potatoes one season that she needed help harvesting. And so Wandaka Skip, who owns Greengate, had the idea that, well, Wandaka and his crew could come out there and help you. And they were excited about it. So they came out to the farm and helped out doing that. And in the process, got to meet John Beal, who's the owner of the land out here that we're on. And, mentioning, yeah, we have a community garden, but we would really love to have more of a farm scale operation where we could be growing, our own food and having our own farming operation. And John, he's been a longtime conservationist in the area, and also just really supportive of farmers of all walks of life, giving them access to land. And so, yeah, within probably 6 months of that potato harvest, the wheels were starting to turn on the idea of establishing New Leaf. And yeah, I mean, Wandaka, even from back when I was volunteering, he was always sort of heading up that FarmLink program. He was kind of always my partner in that. And then also, when I first got out here, he was still managing on the weekends and coming out here to take care of things almost on a daily basis, because he and Doli, their house is pretty close to here. So yeah, I'm not sure if the farm would even exist without Wandaka, really. I mean, he's really was the catalyst for getting it started. And, now that he's been gone for a month or something, there's at least several moments every day where we look around and we're like, oh geez, like, how do we do this without Wandaka? But we're figuring it out, one day at a time.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that those transition moments are so important for growth and understanding kind of the new way forward. But I love that you honored Wandaka so strongly in that. And I think that there's so much that I've understood about MRC's journey as really leaning into, deep listening and trying to understand the needs of the refugees that are coming and arriving in Austin, Texas. And, creating that social enterprise model that isn't just taking them through that 3 to 4 month, they have to take the first job that comes along, but rather matching them with skill sets in really dignified, amazing work, and really creating that space to have, enterprises that are allowing them to like blossom into what is possible there. So, I mean, and also given that it's now 1 in 97 people, so nearly 1% of humanity is a part of the global refugee population that are being displaced from their homes. And we have Doli, and we have here today with us. So Doli, I'm so grateful and so excited that you're willing to share a bit more about some of your experiences working at New Leaf Agriculture and coming to the US. So I'd really, really love to just hear a bit more about, if you could share, your background as a teacher and a farmer, and how working at New Leaf Agriculture is similar or perhaps different from, you know, your time in the Congo and really your journey from the Congo till now.
In Congo, when I was a teacher, I did both jobs. I taught and work in the farmer, because there to become a teacher, you can't get a salary which is enough. The salary is little, and the family need help from you. When you have a job, you must help young people to pay fees. That's why you must work in the garden after school. And that is possible because the program for the school in Congo, it takes 5 hours. We start at 8 and we finish at 1. After that, we can't take lunch at school. We go and take lunch at home. And after that, we go in the garden. To arrive in the field, it can take only 10 minutes. We can work for 2.5 hours and come back at home to do other things, because we must do everything at home. And when we pay fees for the young people in the family, they must help you to work in the garden. You work together to get food, but it isn't for money like here. We work for food only. Everything we found in the garden, only oil and meat which we can buy. And when we found everything in the garden, at school, we found money to pay fees, and the soap, food, soap, kerosene, clothes, things like that. But in Congo, we don't consider garden like a job, because it doesn't bring money. We don't consider it like a job. And when the young people help us to work in the garden, we don't consider that, because there are children in the house. They do everything every day. We don't consider it like a job. But here it's a job. I'm here, I get money from the garden. And with this money, I can find everything. Here I work, I get my salary, I can pay my bills. Although the salary isn't enough, we can contribute with my family members to pay everything at home. But in Congo, farmers, it's an extra job which we do after another job. It isn't like here where we can work 8 hours. No, it's for food only. Here, it's a good job. Now we say that we go to work, but in Congo, no, we can't say that, because we don't know that it's a job. And with that, I see that it was a job, because here, if you pay food, it takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of money. Me, I have 6 children. I can spend 800 and not, or much than that.
I'm really fascinated by kind of the differences that you've witnessed. Is in the Congo, it was being in the garden was just a part of the rhythm of life. It was just something that you and your family did. And here, within kind of the social enterprise model, it's something that is giving, and you're giving and receiving like time and value as far as money. to create that livelihood. So thank you so much for sharing that piece. I think that's really important to get an understanding of just the balance of how that was different, you know, as you were teaching and now you're here farming. So really, really beautiful to get an understanding of that. And just tapping everyone, if you guys have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat as we go along. I know sometimes when something's said, it can inspire a curiosity. So we'll just kind of hold those for later. Yeah, Doli, I'd love to invite Matt maybe to provide a little bit more color just on the programs really that are happening within Multicultural Refugee Coalition. And I know your team's founder, Meg, who it looks like might be here on the call with us today, said that for the first 5 years of MRC, you guys were in deep in the heart of the refugee community, learning and listening to what people wanted. And then that deep listening really informed, you know, the needs of the refugee community to inform the development of New Leaf Agriculture and Open Arms Studios. So really love that process of being held within, you know, kind of the needs of the community and orienting from that space to create enterprises and programs that are really serving refugees and providing them with livelihood. So I hear that balance so much in your answer, Doli, of just the differences of how it shows up. So Matt, I'm kind of curious if you could share a bit more around the advantages that you view just New Leaf Agriculture and Open Arms Studio in being social enterprises dedicated to serving the lives of the Austin refugee community. Like, how have you seen that shown up, and what are the advantages really that you've seen in that model?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I believe you mentioned it briefly earlier, but most folks who show up as refugees in the States have, I want to say it's like 3 months of assistance before they basically need to figure out something for a job. And so most folks will go into you know, fast food or the hospitality industry, turning over beds at hotels, things like that. And, you know, one experience that I've really had working with our team out here is just that they do bring such a breadth and depth of knowledge about farming, and similarly to the Open Arms Studio about sewing. And I think that one thing that Meg kept hearing from everyone when we were more of, you know, sort of a community center, community-based organization rather than a social enterprise was, you know, people just saying, if I just had a place where I could farm, you know, or if I just had somewhere where I could do my sewing, like these are really valuable skills that I have, you know, and just looking for that opportunity to use those skills. And I think that's really been the most powerful thing about our social enterprises, is that it is, you know, really honoring those skills and, you know, sometimes those decades and generations in Wandaka and Doli's case of knowledge about farming. You know, I've worked with plenty of people on other farms, and I just really find that everyone's passion and focus and knowledge here at New Leaf is just really an inspiring place to work.
It's so beautiful. And I love that you brought in the textile studio as well, just coming with those baseline skills that people have and being able to really transform that into, you know, opportunities lifetime. So that ancestral wisdom and knowledge is so beautiful to touch on. Thank you so much for bringing that in. It's so cool. And Doli, maybe as a follow-up question, I'd love to hear, how has working at New Leaf and working at the farm impacted you and your family's lives? I can repeat the question if, oh, maybe they froze.
So how has working at the farm?
And here in the farm, the farm helped me like other jobs, because I'm able to contribute in my family with money first, and sometimes I can take food here. The veggie, we like so much veggie, and when we get, I must bring it home. It can need money too, and it helped my family in that ways. And I'm happy to work here because here too they helped me with the transportation, and it was my family who could bring me to job because I don't know how to drive, but New Leaf helped me with that. They helped me with that. I'm happy. I'm working here, no problem. I can take hours which I need. If I need little hours, I tell the manager, give me little hours, and if I need more, he accepted because of my health. And my family doesn't have a problem because I can't say I become sick because of my job. No, that means they accept me to come and work here. But if other job which can make me sick, they can't accept.
Yeah, how is working at the farm different than working at other jobs as far as how it impacts your health?
Oh, in other job, no, they don't change the position. When they put you in one position, you stay there every day. If it's to stand, you are there every day, and you have a pen in your leg. If it's to use your hand, you stay in the same place and you use the hand every time, and you get a pen in your shoulder. But in New Leaf, it isn't that. Here we change the position. You can, when we harvest, we walk in the garden to look the items which we will harvest. If it's to weed, we can bend. If it's to stand, we can. We have many positions here in New Leaf.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Doli. I love that there's flexibility and that there's beauty in this work that you are finding on the farm. It's so special. Thank you so much for sharing that piece. And Bob in the chat, hi, I know that you jumped in a little bit late, but just welcoming you into the space and to catch you up a little bit, we are getting a sense of the work that Matt and Doli do at New Leaf Agriculture in Austin, Texas. And there will be a time just briefly for questions and answers. So if you have any questions or curiosities for them, feel free to drop them into the chat and we'll roll into that shortly. But yeah, to give a sense of just a bit more overview of the programs, Matt, I'd love if maybe you could touch upon you know, some of the programs that have flourished with the collaboration of Wandaka and Doli and all the other refugee coworkers, as well as some of the partnerships that your team has on the farm. So specifically, I know you're excited about the chickens that are really growing. You guys have an amazing CSA program. I know that you integrate language learnings with the refugees to teach them English and just further their skill sets in that way. And then Seed to Stitch is an incredible one too. So maybe just a bit of an overview of what you guys are working on, some of the programs that have really done well and what you're excited about coming up.
Yeah, so the CSA has really been kind of the anchor for the farm. That was a big pivot kind of around COVID. You know, our CSA went from 12 members to like 85 pretty much overnight whenever the pandemic first really hit. I think there was a lot of uncertainty as maybe there still is, but certainly at that time there was, quite a bit. And I think people really valued being able to know that they could buy into an entire season of produce from a farm, and sort of have that locked in if there's any supply chain, disruptions or those sorts of things. So that's really been kind of our bread and butter out here. One thing that we started this past spring is going back to the Mueller Farmers Market here in town. It's one of the more popular farmers markets in Austin. And that one, with the size of our CSA, we wanted to make sure that we had other products to sell there, which was a big impetus for getting our laying hens. So we have 200 chickens now that we keep in a mobile coop, and they're probably going to start laying in like the next week or so. So we're about to be swimming in eggs very shortly, but sort of taking advantage of the kind of the power of having livestock included in your crop rotation. We built a mobile coop for them, and so the plan is to start rotating them through the fields kind of ahead of our crops for them to fertilize and also do some really good less invasive weed control, less than tillage, I guess is what I mean. And so we're planning on sort of rotating them through these blocks throughout the fields, and then you have to wait a certain amount of time after you have livestock on a given piece, on a given field. But then once we move them off and allow that time to pass, we're planning on sort of planting kind of behind them as we move through the field. So I'm really excited to see how that impacts our operation. And to me, regenerative agriculture is a lot about kind of closing those loops, where your outputs from one enterprise sort of become your inputs for another one. And, I think on our scale, having chickens in the mix is really kind of a great addition to our fertility program and just to our overall crop rotation. And then you mentioned the seed to stitch efforts that we're doing. And so we have 800 Mexican mint marigold plants. If folks aren't familiar with that, it's also called Texas tarragon. So it's used culinarily for sort of as like a more anise flavored tarragon. It's a really interesting herb. We've had some people do stuff with ice cream and gelato with it. And it's good for making simple syrups for cocktails and things like that. It's also called pericone, I think is another name for it, an indigenous name for it, Pericon. But the reason we're growing so much of it is for natural dye. And so it creates this really vibrant yellow dye once you dry the stems and leaves and flowers. Really the whole plant can become dye substrate. So we are lucky that last year we found some partners who were interested in buying the whole lot from us. And so this year we're looking for someone else who might want, 300 pounds of dried Mexican mint marigold. So if anyone knows anyone in the natural dye scene, we are still searching for that kind of larger wholesale dye house. But then in addition to the natural dyes, this past spring, we also trialed some longline flaxseed, which is flax fiber. You can use the seed for livestock feed and those sorts of things, but the main purpose is to actually use the stalk for fiber, and it goes through several steps of processing until you're left with this really kind of fine thread that can then be woven into fabric. So long term, what we're hoping to do, and we're planning on planting a larger section of flax here in the next maybe 6 weeks or so. Long term, we would love to be able to produce the flax fiber out here, get it processed and woven into fabric, and then incorporate that into a line of products that Open Arms Studio makes, along with the natural dye. So it's really that seed to stitch component of, literally taking everything from putting a seed in the ground out here to turning it into a garment, or, you know, we also grow some lavender out here. So we're thinking like little eye pillows or something like that. So lots of cool possibilities with that. And it's really kind of a burgeoning area in sustainable agriculture. I feel like a big movement, there's a big movement for bringing back more natural fibers and natural dyes. And it's a cool thing to be a part of right now.
Couldn't agree more. There's so much to unpack in what you just said, and I really, really appreciate how you created that visual of completely from seed to stitch, like in the name of it, and thinking about all the different aspects of how do we weave in what's on our land and what's available here, and create partnerships with our internal organizations and external producers to create something tangible that folks can support this work and, you know, really fund the farms initiatives. And also just so beautiful to think that I love really that closed loop, same as you were speaking about within regenerative agriculture, like the chickens and how everything has a role in that piece. It's so beautiful to think of an incredible microcosm of just locally grown everything from the fiber to the dye to the people who are working really close by, being involved in the production and creation of it. So just hats off to you guys for the creation and inception of that program and to the work that you've already done. Because I know you've had some incredible partners like IKEA and others already that are really involved and excited about that. So beautiful, so incredible. And the CSA program, I mean, not to forget that you mentioned and touched upon that, how many folks that you are feeding each week with that, as well as through the farmers market. It's just absolutely fabulous work. And Doli, I know you spend time at the farmers market each week. And you're a source of joy for many there, sharing recipes and all of that good stuff. So I'm curious what you enjoy about the farmers market. Do you like that piece of what you do, going and connecting with people at the farmers market?
Yeah, I like the farmers market because first I'm learning how to use the computer. Yeah, because I didn't know how to use it. And there I see many people. I'm happy when I'm connected to the people, the different culture. They come and they ask us some question, and with that I try to speak English because my English is low. I try to listen to them and do my effort to understand them, and that is good for me.
It's beautiful. I really appreciate that. And your English is very, very good. So thank you so much for being a part of this. And I love that you are out there each week mixing in that cultural stew at the farmers market and sharing what you know and adding that beauty and wisdom and knowledge to the mix. So really gorgeous there. We'll ask just one more question, but in the meantime, I'd love to invite folks just to drop your questions in the chat. We're gonna try and direct questions directly to Matt or to Doli, so please specify who you'd like to ask your question to. Yeah, Matt, what's going on?
So in order to be away from where all the commotion was earlier, we're like kind of out in the field, and my phone for some reason is running low on batteries somewhat quickly. I guess Zoom does that. So I think I can make it back over to the trailer before it dies in order to plug it in, but we might be sort of like walking for the next 5 minutes, but we can still like answer questions, and I'll try to hold the phone in a somewhat effective way. So sorry about that. We just don't have power out here, so I'll have to get back to where the power is.
That's all good. I love it. It's like a farm tour happening live. This is perfect.
Yeah. So I'm but I'll take the phone. So.
We had, awesome, Christiana. Just, yeah, I guess this is a good transition moment if anyone wants to drop a question in the chat that you might have for Doli or Matt about New Leaf, about Multicultural Refugee Coalition at large. All right. Yeah, we have a question for Doli, Matt. I wonder if we'll be able to hear her. We can try. Let's try this one. If not, maybe Matt, we can toss you one in the meantime. But Doli, Leia's curious, what's your favorite thing that you've grown at New Leaf?
Your favorite vegetable that you've grown here?
The favorite vegetable is the arugula.
Arugula. Love
Yeah.
it. Why is that your favorite?
I like it because it's sour. I can eat it without salt, without oil. It's healthy.
Love that. So good. Arugula is so tasty, it's so peppery, and you're so right. You can just eat it fresh. It's so perfect. Amazing. We had another question come through through Henrik, who's driving. And he's really curious if, I guess maybe both of you could answer this question. Matt, maybe if you wanted to go first, but just curious around if you find it easy to tell your story, like as a part of New Leaf Agriculture, or if not, like what is the difficult part? So just kind of conveying the work that you guys are doing there. Is that pretty seamless for you, or do you guys ever come across challenges in that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Challenges in conveying the story or conveying?
Yeah, the full, I mean, I think Henrik's driving, so he can't necessarily hop off chat, but
Yeah.
just do you find it easy to tell the story, or maybe there's value in, you know, what are the favorite parts of the story that you like to highlight? Or yeah, if you guys ever come across barriers in conveying, just there's so much happening within the work that you're doing at New Leaf, and then that being a part of the ecosystem of MRC. So where does it feel seamless to talk about it? And then maybe if not, are there ever any challenges in telling that story?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's seamless to the extent that, you know, everyone really loves what they do out here. So, you know, I think in terms of feeling like we're, you know, really working well with the people who work in our organization, and everyone's so passionate about the work that in that sense, you know, it always, there's never really a question about the direction of where we're headed, you know, because I think everyone's very focused on each decision we make, like how is that going to lead toward being able to provide more livelihood opportunities for folks. So I know, at least for me, you know, that's really where everything that we do out here kind of starts and ends is, you know, how is this to enrich the lives and create more opportunity. So yeah, in that regard, I think that within that, there's always some different, you know, I think right now we really try to go, we're only able to employ, you know, 5 another 4 people, but figure out is how do we spread that impact as well, so that, you know, even if maybe we're not able to provide in at a middle school or high school, the one that Wandaka went to, that he helped establish a community garden at, and that's still in operation. So, you know, what we've been thinking about lately is how could we potentially broaden that, potentially by starting basically a larger community garden out here at the farm, with the hope that that could actually be an income producing revenue stream for the people who garden there, potentially growing more vegetables that they want to grow for their own community. There's a farm out of North Carolina that's doing something similar. So so actually empowering the people that we work with to grow the food that they want to grow for folks from their own community, rather than necessarily always targeting what we're growing toward, kind of the general consumer. So yeah, it's an interesting question. I hope that kind of gets at it, but I think that, that it all, for us, it all just revolves around that question of how do we serve the most people that we can in the best way that we can. And those are kind of our considerations around that.
That's amazing. I'm really fascinated also by that last piece that you just mentioned of a community garden going to, so it would basically be like to like friends and family and like Doli and Matt and Doli and some of the other refugee farm workers communities within Austin. Am I getting that right?
Yeah. So, I think essentially we're packing up the CSA right now. I don't know if y'all can see that. So, say hi, everyone. But yeah, we're that would be the idea, is to basically give more autonomy to everyone to grow food for the people in their communities. And also the farm out of North Carolina is called Transplanting Traditions. I think that's what it's called, pretty sure. And they have the way that they set up is where it's especially for people who are just arriving to the States, so that whenever they first get here, they're able to, still enjoy a lot of the food that they were eating at home, so that it's not so much of a culture shock of having to figure that out at that point. So
That's beautiful. I love that idea of just bridging across the cultural part of just growing foods at home. I think that's really nourishing to someone who just arrives to the US and, wants to just have a taste of home. That's really, really special. I love that initiative. Do we have Doli back? I'm kind of curious to ask her whenever she pops back in, like what she would grow. Like, is there anything from her heart or from the Congo that she's missing and would love to grow? And I think you're muted. Let me see. We're in transition, gang. Good time to think about more questions.
okay, almost set up in our new environs. This is our food processing trailer. So right now we are doing our Roselle hibiscus tea harvest. And so we actually have some commercial dehydrators in here that are running. That's kind of some of the noise in the background, but they're dehydrating hibiscus tea, which we'll package and then sell. So anyway, I think we're settled. I'm plugged in, 2%. I just saved us, but we're still good to go. So yeah, I think the question you had for Doli was if you were to grow your own food out here for other Congolese people, other people from Congo, what are some of the vegetables that you would grow?
People from Congo, they need amaranth, they need pumpkin leaves, and they need cassava leaves. But it's difficult to get this food because of the weather. If you plant amaranth, that is good because they grow quickly. You can grow it, but in the summer, spring and summer. And cassava leaves, it's very difficult because it takes a long time. You can start to get cassava leaves after 4 or 6 months. And to get the root, you need 1 year. But here we have One American is Wandaka's friend. He has cassava in his garden. He said that he make tortilla with, because he gave me something which I can plant. I have a tree plant at home in my backyard. But I don't know if it will survive when the winter will come. But I have it. I ate the first fruit, the first veggie only one time. But the winter is it will come now. I don't know. I'll get the second, but I don't know the third if I'll get or not.
Yeah, maybe some experimentation there on which season it'll grow best in and how it can work. Maybe take a season or two to get the cassava planted and feel it out. I love that. That's awesome. Did you say that you were also growing pumpkin, Doli? Or you'd like to grow pumpkin?
She's asking about the pumpkin leaves. Maybe you can talk about eating the leaves.
The pumpkin leaves. I think we put a video online. Do you remember?
Yeah, so she's mentioning pumpkin leaves, actually. So like you grow, winter squash, but instead of letting it get all the way to where you have the little pumpkins, once the leaves are, about that big, you actually pick the leaves and eat just the squash greens, which is really cool. Yeah. And we actually have a video that I can try to dig up if y'all want to see, but we have a video of Wandaka. I can send it to you in an email or something, Tori, but we have a video of Wandaka teaching our CSA members how to prepare the squash greens, because I've never seen it on any other farm or at the farmer's market or anything. And it's really delicious. It takes a little bit of processing to get it ready to cook, but it's worth the extra effort. It's really, really good.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think I'd love to see the video, and it'd be great to share it out because I know a lot of folks grow pumpkins, and that's so fascinating to kind of like eat the leaves before the pumpkins are ready. It really shifts like the piece of that plant that becomes edible. Oh, great. Thank you so much, Meg, for dropping that in. All right, everyone. Well, it is right there. Thank you. I love that. I had another question come through chat. Matt, maybe this would be a great one for you. Someone's just curious if you could more about just the farm design and how you guys are really working with regenerative agriculture principles, or if you guys have any kind of like lines of thought around like the ecosystem that go into just regenerative agriculture land management.
Yeah. So when the farm was first getting started, there was sort of a master permaculture plan for a certain section of the farm. And so the Mexican mint marigolds, the dye plants that I was mentioning earlier, are actually planted on berms. So we have like a berm and swale system, some earthworks. And if folks aren't familiar with that, if you can picture like a big hillside where water would normally just sheet straight down and cause a lot of erosion and sort of take a lot of the soil fertility with it. With berms and swales, the swale is just kind of like a long skinny pond that you dig right below your berm. And so you're essentially just scooping dirt out of this pond onto a berm right next to it. And you do that on contour so that, the top of one side of the berm is the same elevation as the other side of the berm. And between those 2 points, it looks kind of like a squiggle or something. And that's because you find the contour lines to make sure that that's an even plane kind of all the way across. So the effect of that is that then when water moves through that landscape, it's not going to be draining out either side or anything like that. It's going to really get slowed down and going to sink into the berm. And it's a water conservation strategy. And typically you'll plant perennial crops
on those berms. So we have different fruit trees, we have all those marigolds, we have some asparagus, those sorts of things. And so we have 4 of those that are maybe like 75 feet apart from one another. And then in between those berms, we're employing what's called alley cropping, which essentially just means planting annual crops in between your perennial crops. So, you know, we have these alleys in between these perennial crops on the berms that we're planting our usual annual vegetable crops in. And then on top of that, we're going to be running the chickens through there, sort of like after we cover crop a given area, we're going to be mowing that cover crop down and then running the chickens over the cover crop residue to help it break down faster and get incorporated into the soil, kind of composting it in place. And so that's really kind of our soil plan. And yeah, I mean, when you think about it in terms of an ecosystem and, you know, even the difference between regenerative agriculture and, you know, standard organic agriculture, in my mind, once you start incorporating the animals and the perennials, which are really, you know, kind of one of the key features of any ecosystem is going to be, you know, what animals are moving through that landscape and what, you know, what crops are there that you're not replanting year after year. And those elements really start to kind of define the farming ecosystem once you're incorporating them and, you know, really moving things, in my mind, from a standard organic annual agricultural model to something that feels and looks more regenerative.
It's amazing. Wow, thank you so much. And Matt, I hope that answered your question a bit more. The berms and soil piece is really, really fascinating. As far as water management on a farm, I think that's something that really gets a contrast with regenerative and kind of like that relationship to land, thinking about like all of the aspects of, you know, that farming practice and, you know, just managing that energy and that resource in a really effective way. So thanks for touching on that. And then also the
Could I chime in with one more thing on that? As far as water management and conservation goes, I mentioned John Beal, the landowner out here. He's been a big conservationist in the area for a long time, and his 300-acre ranch is actually a part of a 2,000-acre contiguous conservation easement. And so, you know, our farm is sort of just a patchwork in this broader 2,000-acre conservation easement, which essentially means there's restrictions on how it'll be developed in the future and those sorts of things. So it's been really cool seeing everything that he's done with the land even before we got here. There's sections of the farm that aren't really good for cropping that have some native grasses established on them. And one of the big projects that he undertook the second year that we were out here was to dig a catchment pond that holds, I forget exactly what it is, but it's like 1 million something gallons of water. And so that actually filled up with some of the big rains that we got in like the early summer this past year. So we got a permaculture design and installation company that I used to work for, Symbiosis Regenerative Systems. They came out and installed a pump system for that pond. So we were watering with city water before, just with our local water utility. And now we have the ability to switch from that city water over to pond water from that catchment pond that he dug. And so we've been irrigating pretty much solely with pond water since probably like May or something like that. Yeah, I mean, our water bills have been cut by, 80% or something like that. And it's just really cool. I think in water conservation, you sort of have to delineate between blue water and green water. And blue water is sort of like, water that comes from a utility, that comes from some kind of,
pump or well, like a municipal kind of source, whether it's municipal or just getting, coming up out of the aquifer, and then green water being water that just falls from the sky. And so it's pretty cool that for the majority of our irrigation, we're irrigating with what I would consider green water. So kind of within the broader water conservation piece, it's a really cool step for the farm.
That's really amazing. I didn't know that differentiation between green and blue water. And I mean, I'm in California, and that's a huge topic and challenges, depleting water tables and aquifers being tapped by overuse for agriculture. So to have an encatchment pond and really be, transitioning into that as a water resource, kudos. That's amazing. Really, really beautiful that you guys have partnership with John in that sense. Cool. We have a few more questions coming in. Bob, are you around? I'm wondering if you would actually mind jumping off mute and asking Matt this question. I'm a bit confused on kind of some of the meaning behind it. Can you hear me, Bob?
Yes, I am here. I am a certified permaculture designer. And I think in terms of permaculture design, and when I hear, the success that Matt and his team has been seeing in the recent years, I like to look at the successful actions that have been incorporated into the master plans that he mentioned. In terms of education, I'm thinking that culture and education are very much tied to the refugee and asylum program. And in so, what are the economics and finance, some of the key points that are also addressed with legal issues in terms of those refugee and asylum programs? These are key issues. I mean, I could do research and ask a lot of questions, but if there's some key points that you could cover or things that you consider important that could be addressed, that could be incorporated in other permaculture designs, I'd really appreciate that.
So are you asking about, sounds like there's kind of two parts of your question. One is about, what are you curious about in terms of the permaculture design?
Well, there's actually three.
Okay.
Okay. The permaculture design incorporates culture and education. And I see that, pretty much aligned with the refugee and asylum program as part of your master plan. But that also brings up the legal part in terms of the refugee and asylum program that you guys have discovered or over the, your operating basis that might be useful in us addressing or where we should look or whatever. Also the finance. I don't know if there are any incentives with that particular program or things that you could point us to that could be incorporated into other permaculture designs.
Yeah, so like incorporating some of our work with refugees or incorporating that, some of the sort of like social aspects of what we do with financing permaculture projects. Sorry, I'm trying to follow the thread here.
All right. Well, probably let me explain a little bit about my design.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I'm 70 years old. I've been retired for 7 years. And I live up in northern Michigan on 34 acres. And I've started up in my retired years a couple of companies that are large scale, very much in alignment with farmers' footprint. And so I'm looking at taking all of my experience and training and so forth and sharing that with others as part of a design program. And I'm looking, I need personnel that are probably younger and go-getters that would like to go incorporate their interest and energies and so forth in carrying things forward. So from my point of view, I'm concerned about the finance and economics of funding such a program and what legal issues I would need to address in order to incorporate it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that's definitely something that we think about as we think about, you know, expanding our programs out here. Like I mentioned earlier on in the conversation, you know, we are currently only able to employ 5 people, kind of, you know, more or less full time. And so, you know, we're always seeking out different grants and things like that. I think for us, you mentioned education. I feel like that's one of the areas that we're really drawn toward in terms of funding and finance, because I think that that's a really powerful component for a lot of folks to see that, you know, that there is a big learning component to what we're doing out here. We actually have a, you know, it's not necessarily designed around permaculture, but we do actually have a certification program for the refugees who work here, as well as we offer it to the folks at our community garden to come through a certification program where we kind of start in the greenhouse and go from, you know, the greenhouse to the field to taking care of stuff once it's in the field to, you know, how to plan a season and those sorts of things. And we plan on having that course completed for our current farmers by the end of the year. And that was something, I don't have the exact grant or anything that we did that through, but that entire process was something that we got grant funded. So yeah, if that's something that you're passionate about, I think there's a lot of different organizations that you can connect with, especially around that education piece for sure. And I think, you know, with that, with the programming and the funding in place, it's definitely something that both funders and then also people seeking that kind of education would really value.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Matt. I think that's really helpful. Bob, I'm happy to connect with you afterwards as well and maybe elevate some of those questions that you have to the community and see if there's any resources within the group that could help. And I'd love to get more context around the program as well. So great idea, Matt, on the grant side. Amazing, guys. Well, we are nearing the final corner of our time together here. So I just have 2 final questions for Doli and Matt. And the first one is, how can this community support you? And what are your needs in this moment at New Leaf Agriculture?
So how do you feel like, how do you feel like the New Leaf community supports you? Or how can the New Leaf community support you?
Either or. I mean, I'm interested in both, but really, I think this is kind of like as we sign everyone off, like, do you guys have any top of mind salient needs that, you know, this community or you'd really like to put out into the world of like, we're really looking and seeking for this, we could use support here. And I know funding is probably all of one of them. I know you guys mentioned looking for a home for those 300 pounds of Mexican marigolds. Yeah, if there's any others.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, obviously on that funding side of things, I think that program I was mentioning earlier about, you know, creating a space out here for our farmers to grow things for their own community. I think to me, that's really kind of the next step for the farm. And, you know, I think, Doli, how would you feel about having your own space to grow your own food out here? Or grow food for your community, for other people from Congo?
To grow my own food, it's good to be good, but I have a problem Here, if you don't know how to drive, you can't do anything.
Right.
That is my problem. I don't know how to drive.
Yeah.
Who will bring me to the garden? Maybe if I get a garden and I put here a small house, I stay there. It can be good. I can make it. Because after to harvest, to go in the market, sometimes I can get a volunteer who will help me. But to go in the garden, that's the problem.
Right. Yeah. So I think, hearing that need, it's something that we are sort of always considering is transportation for our folks. Every morning we're going around and picking up 4 or 5 different people from different places to bring them out here so that they have the opportunity to work out here. And I think one of our biggest fundraising efforts this next year, in order to be able to implement the community garden aspect that we're thinking of, is going to be to invest in a passenger van. We already have a cargo van that's hanging in there, but it's been through some stuff that we use for deliveries and stuff like that. So to really have a great source of transportation, I think that would be kind of what would really open up the farm access to so many more people than just our team that we are already picking up out here. So that's an effort that we're definitely going to be kind of putting out there in the coming months. And it's just always kind of putting all the pieces of the puzzle together to really open up the next door out here for folks. So yeah, we'll definitely keep y'all's network included in that conversation, as we're kind of looking at the best way to expand a lot of these programs.
Amazing. That's sometimes the simplest things, right? Like just getting people there. Doli, thank you so much for bringing that piece in. Just the reality of that. And I dropped in the chat a way for everyone here, if you're inspired or anyone who's listening to the recording of this, to go ahead and donate to Livelihood Agriculture and MRC to support the funding of that transportation, the refugee garden program. And then I'll also drop in, I guess actually the very, very final question, I know we're right about time. Is there just one thing that you'd like to imprint on folks as they walk away from this session? Like if you were going to put something on a billboard, what would that say?
What would you like to tell everyone as a parting word today? As we say goodbye, what would you like to say to everyone?
Something which I can tell to everyone is to like the job. Because if you don't like it, you can feel tired. But when you like something, you can't be tired.
I love that. Just that openness. Just try it, right? Put a seed in the ground, see how it feels. Wow.
And consider it like a job, not like a player like in Africa. Consider the farmer like a job and like it.
So beautiful. Thank you, Doli. Just deep wisdom. I really, really appreciate you jumping in and sharing that. And Matt, thank you so, so much for your time as well. I want to share quickly in the chat for everyone all of the ways that you can follow along with Multicultural Refugee Coalition, New Leaf Agriculture, and Open Arms Studios. And also here is the possibility, can you guys see this? To go ahead and, oops, sorry. Here we are, support their efforts as we go along. So just deep gratitude, Matt, to you and Doli both for taking such time out of your day. It's hugely valuable. I know that you could be doing so many other things and you're out there running a farm and amidst this CSA program and literally on the land doing this work. So to tell us a little bit more about the practices that you're using on the farm, how it's impacted both of you, and yeah, just really what your hopes are for the future and the ways that the Farmers Footprint community can come alongside and support and get to know your work and have a window into like your day-to-day has been just absolutely beyond special. So thank you so much to both of you and to everyone who joined here today. It's just a pleasure. It's such a beautiful thing to be able to hear more in your guys' words around what's happening there. So really deeply appreciate your time. I want to release you two back. I know we're just a few minutes over, so thank you so much for being so generous. And then everyone else, if you want to stick around, we're going to do a community roundtable until 1:30. So just if you have any additional questions or want to connect further, we'll be hanging out in discussion and roundtable. So Matt and Doli, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. Appreciate your words and your wisdom.
Thank y'all. Appreciate everyone for signing on today. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye, guys. Appreciate it. Gorgeous. Sweet, gang. And then in the meantime, if anyone wants to stick around, I'm going to invite everyone to be able to come off mute if you have any questions around any of that. Thanks so much for joining today. I'd love to hear, you know, what resonated or what you still have lingering questions about, or yeah, I feel like so much of this talk was really inspirational, just hearing Doli's conversations around what was different between the Congo to here, and like how that was just so ingrained in the garden and a piece of her life there, and just what her family did, to the transition of now it's like it's more of like a piece of her life, right? Like, but such a centering role that she can like take what she learned and brought from there into this new space at New Leaf and bring some of that wisdom. So that was one that was really impactful for me. Just hearing like that reciprocity, kind of the mental switch of like, it's so ingrained, it's a piece of everything, and now it's something I get paid for, but it's like I'm still using those tangible skills and that rhythm. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I can echo that of just how she mentioned back in the Congo when she was farming after teaching, it wasn't considered work. And just this like relationship we have with work, and her closing words too, to be that of like, make sure you're doing what you love. Yeah, it was just so beautiful and inspiring. And the notion of just the importance of food and growing our food, and that skill that so many people today don't have. And like, yeah, how if it's just important. And I love that it doesn't have to be considered work, but something that is just that reciprocity we have with nature, that relationship. And yeah.
Absolutely, Leah. Yeah, I love that. Marcel, are you here with us? I saw you jumped off mute. Maybe not, all good. I think another thing that she said that really struck me was just that, exactly that ending piece of like, do something that you love and like try anything. I think imagining her story of coming from the Congo to Uganda to the US, like the openness that she had to have to arrive and really be receptive to this completely brand new experience, new territory, new culture, and new way of working for a few years before she landed on the farm via Wandaka. It's just like the mind-blowing resilience of that. I think having that wisdom in the room was just like really, really powerful and inspiring for me to just hear how much she's traversed and really the challenges that she's been through. So unbelievable and cool. I really enjoyed the interaction too of Matt and her, like just chatting, like you can tell they have such beautiful rapport, and are really enjoying the work that they're doing and growing. Yeah, so good. Tom, what do you think? How was the sesh for you?
I liked it a lot. It was awesome. It was really cool to just listen in and hear their enthusiasm for what they're doing. I think was pretty cool. And it's awesome that Doli has this opportunity. Like, that's so great that Matt and that New Leaf Agriculture providing that. So I was like happy, but also it was great to see that like she is thriving and enjoying her life here. Just like you said, it's probably a lot of transitions and so many changes. And I missed kind of that first part where she was telling her journey, I think, to the US. I missed that part, but I can imagine it was not easy, and she's been through a lot. So it feels good to know that like she's got a community that cares about her. And yeah, and it was cool learning about, like, I thought it was cool they grew all those flowers too, like hibiscus and marigolds, because I like growing marigolds. Actually, I really like them. And that's cool. I think sometimes we focus on like growing tomatoes, you know, but it's fun to hear people growing unique things.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that to build off what you were saying too, the idea of like empowering the refugee community to grow things for their own community was like very dazzling. It's amazing they have that partner farm in North Carolina that's really pioneering that work to grow interesting things, to like empower them to grow exactly what they do want to grow and feed themselves in that sense.
Yeah, so much knowledge with that, like the pumpkin leaves, like what? I don't know. I've like grown pumpkins and like know so many people that do, but I don't know anyone that eats the leaves. So that was really cool to learn too.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to watch that video afterwards. We'll definitely share that out a little bit further. It's really, really beautiful. So nuts. Yeah, but just there's so much going on at MRC. I think that's one of the things that's really impressive to me. Like they've done such a beautiful job of listening so deeply and then growing and creating those enterprises from that space of like, okay, people are here and have sewing skills. Okay, people are here and have farming skills. Like, oh my gosh, those two can bridge build once we get a little bit more of, you know, energy and resources around these programs. I think that's a piece too of just like organizations like this, where it's like, you know, any amount that's going directly to support them is just like adding fuel to that fire of the possibility that they have to bring on more refugees to work with them directly and support them, connect them to like a livelihood that's actually really nourishing to them. Super good. Anything else, gang? I don't know. I mean, we've got a couple minutes, but usually we just hold these kind of more open circles as like a, if anything comes. We've all been to webinars and then have such inspiration and such resonance, and then it just cuts off. So it's just really a space to process and bring forward anything that feels great. But also if we're feeling satisfied, I think the replay will be available. We'll tap in all those great links to support and give a little bit further if that is inspiring to you in this moment. And yeah, just deep gratitude for all y'all being here. Really, really appreciate your presence and listening. It's so important to our team to just like step to the side and not necessarily have our lens on farmers' stories on the grounds, but to have that piece of allowing them to speak really directly and get everyone in the community a little bit closer to their direct experience. So this was a really special one for that. I've never met personally a refugee farmer, and I think hearing her story was just like, it's so, so good to see her thriving in that realm and to just hear her words. I think that was really beautiful.
And yeah, Jessie, who wrote that piece so beautifully, has been cultivating that relationship for months. Like it was definitely, she was going to volunteer every week just to get to know them and be, you know, comfortable with each other. It wasn't just found them, we're like, hey, can we feature you? It was a long process to get here, to build that trust and comfortability, which is so beautiful. So shout out to Jessie, who's not here right now, but she really made this as strong and powerful as it was because all the hours of volunteering she's done.
Yeah, being on that land and in that space and getting to know like the 6 refugees who are working there is, you really can't replace that. I really appreciate you bringing that in, Leah. Thank you. So good. All right, well, we will zip it up, invite y'all back into the wild. Thank you so much for taking some time today to come hear Doli and Matt's story and learn more about New Leaf. Always here for further connection. We will have more farm sides, and also inviting everyone who's interested, if you're interested in kind of more of these land stewardship pieces, we're gonna have a land stewards community conversation next Tuesday. And then also there is a food as medicine community conversation happening next Thursday. So if either of those are interesting to you, we can keep the conversation going, keep connecting within this circle, and appreciate y'all. Have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Thanks.